Hello everybody. Happy Friday. Today is October the 21st. We are slowly or quickly actually approaching the end of October. How's everybody doing? Hello everybody. Hi. Come on in and get situated. We're going to be here for a little bit. We're making block 3 of the 2022 Quilt As You Go Quilt Along. Snowmen, that's what we're doing today. Hello everybody. So great to see you. Thanks for joining me today. If you have to leave before we're done, feel free to come back on the replay. And if this is your first time here, y'all, this is a free quilt along. All the stuff can be found down in the description box. The free pattern, the link for the SVG if you have a cutting machine. I know several of y'all have already gotten that. The playlist where all of these videos are grouped together. Links for my Facebook, all kinds of stuff. Hi, everybody. Hello. So great to see you. Come on in. Whew, I feel like we have quite a bit of little sewing to do. It's going to be kind of fun today because I'm mixing up things that I'm using today. We have some small pieces. Let me switch over to the cutting mat so you can see the applique pieces for this week, right? These are your tracing templates. And I did want to just remind you, if you're using a fusible, like Wonder Under, Steam-A-Seam, Heat and Bond Light, Heat and Bond Feather Light, any of your fusible products for applique. These templates have not been mirror imaged. I don't know so much that it would make a difference on the body of the snowman or all of these details or even the hat. But it would make a difference if you want your snowman's scarf going this way. You'll definitely want to trace your pieces from the back side using a window or like a light pad, right? Hello, everybody. If you use freezer paper to do your applique, then you'll trace right from the front. It's so great to see you. Hello, everybody. So, yeah, block 3. We're going to be doing 2 snowmen, and I'm going to try to go through it quickly, but also take my time so that my snowmen are nice and neat, hopefully. And, of course, you can grab all of the information for this quilt project. When we're done, this quilt's going to measure 32 inches wide and 36 inches long. Okay, so it's not a huge bed quilt. It's just going to make a great decoration for the holiday season, right? Christmas coming up. We should get done with this project maybe 2 weeks before Christmas. So you'll have time, if you start now, to get this quilt done and have plenty of time to display it for Christmas, right? And the beauty about the way I'm doing it, which you don't have to, is that we're doing these blocks quilt as you go. So as you're joining everything together, you're kind of finishing up the quilt as we go along. So once we get to the last block, all you'll have to do is put a binding on it. I do know some of you are not doing the quilt as you go method, so you'll still have to quilt it, right? But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Let me move that over here. Hello, everybody. That's all right, Valerie. Valerie didn't flip hers, so her scarf will be going the other way. I almost thought, because we're doing 2 snowmen, of doing one scarf one way and one scarf the other. Wouldn't that be cute? So let me move over. I want to show you, I have a selection of threads I'm using today. I'll probably be doing some color changes in the sewing machine during the applique. And I do have some pearl cotton because look at some of these pieces. They're a little tiny, right? I did not even bother cutting out the little circles for the mouth. And there's tons of different options. Like I even listed some optional ideas here. You could use buttons or beads, rickrack, hand sewing thread. You could use a fabric marker. There's all kinds of ways to achieve the details without cutting that out of fabric if you don't want to. Hello, everybody. So great to see you. So let me pull this over. And I have you zoomed into the mat a little bit as we get started today. And I might zoom that out here in a little bit. But let me get these fabrics out and open. I do have a warm and natural batting and my backing fabric ready to go. That is a few inches larger than the top for this block. Let me just get that laid out. And this block is going to actually finish at 9.5 inches wide and 18.5 inches long. Just to let you know, I did cut my background fabric about an inch bigger than that, because after we're done, I'm going to square this up before we join it to the other section. Oh, Sheila said, is there room to stitch a little initial on the scarf? Would be so cute. That would be cute. That would be cute. I think there is. Let's just take a look. This is the scarf piece right there. Absolutely. I think there is. Isn't that cute? So let's take a look at some of these fabrics, because this is wool. And so are my buttons. And so are my eyes. The fabric I'm using for the body of the snowman is just Kona white quilter's cotton. And I'm using a flannel for the hat. So I have a variety of fabrics that I'm working with today. So that should be fun, right? Let me move all of this other stuff out of the way. We're going to get this iron heating up. We have quite a bit to do today. I have lint everywhere, y'all. I think with this, and again, I'll zoom out here in a little bit, but I want you to be able to see some details that I'm doing here in just a second. Sorry, I'm a little stuffy this morning. I'm kind of chilly. As my iron is heating up, we have the two snowmen going right down the center of the block, right? So I thought I would give myself a crease, just fold the background in half, so I can kind of center my snowmen, right? So we're going to do that. As that iron is warming up, I'm just doing a finger press. I don't want a hard crease in my background. Just a finger press. And you can just barely see that, right? There we go. And just to show you what I'm doing, because I'm not going to get really technical in measuring these out, I'm just going to kind of do a finger placement, like 3 fingers from the top, 3 fingers from the bottom, and that's how I'm going to place my snowman. Nothing really technical, okay? So I do have all of my pieces already pre-cut out. And the hat is going to overlap the very top of the snowman's body. Okay, there's a little bit extra there so that you can overlap the hat just a little bit. I just want to measure down 3 fingers and line him up just like that. I think that looks great. I'm going to go ahead and hit that with the iron just so it doesn't move around too much. I want to kind of avoid over pressing, but we have lots of things to press on, so I'm going to do short, quick presses just to tack it in place. And then we can bring in the scarf and put that in there. And while we're pressing that, let's press on his buttons. These are actually a green wool. And what's really great about the wool is you don't necessarily have to like stitch down every raw edge because it's not going to fray. And I do think doing some hand stitches would be perfect. Oh no. I didn't have that seated exactly right. Let's move that back there. Actually, let's go ahead and do his eyes at the same time, because the little eyes I cut out of wool as well. So there we go. Derry, you are at the embroidery machine today, huh? Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, you know, when you have free time, you can always come back and revisit, right? Let's see if I can just use a little burst of steam to get this. The wool is quite thick, so it takes a second to get that heat to go through. I did use, on some parts of the applique for the wool, I used Heat and Bond Light, and some others I used Heat and Bond Feather Light. I have bolts of each, but I also have a scrap box, and I just pull when I'm doing applique from the scrap box. So there's a mixture of fusibles that I'm using today. Yep, it's not. There we go. I put water in my iron. I know some of you do not, but I like the little burst of steam every once in a while. I'm wondering if I don't have that quite hot enough. Let's reheat it for a second. Oh, you made the angel Christmas ornament. That's awesome. That's a fun one to do. Ah, Jackie used orange fabric to make a carrot for the nose. That's cute. That's cute. I've been seeing lots of blocks come through over on the Creative Crew. Y'all are doing so good. I feel like this is taking a long time. It should not take that long. All right, we're going to let that cool off, and we're going to scoot up. And we're going to position the next one. 3 fingers from the bottom. I'm zoomed in, so you can't necessarily see that. And I'm just going to center that right on there with the hat. And I think that's a nice placement of the snowman. We have some room at the top and bottom and the sides to square this up once we're done. This time I'm just going to put everything down in place. Hopefully not move anything. And press all these pieces at one time. Maybe speed up the process. Oh no! I lost one of my little circles. Where did it go? Uh-oh. This one's only going to have 2 buttons. I've lost the other one. I'll tell you, I cut these little pieces with the wool out by hand. I know my scan and cut will definitely cut them, but I was wondering if it was on the back side of that. But I didn't necessarily have time to mess with figuring out the blade settings for it. So I did cut these out by hand. I'm missing a button. I bet you the cat swiped it. She does that, you know. She comes in and she takes stuff. I will probably find it in some weird place in our bedroom. I would really like to find it right now, but I guess we're going to go with 2 buttons on the bottom for right now. I can always come back and just add that in if I ever find it or if I cut another one. Vicky said, that's right, blame the cat. I can tell you, I know I cut the right number of buttons out. I do know that. All right, I'm just checking for movement, and we're going to let that cool off for a second. What I thought I would do, and I kind of made a game plan, What I kind of thought I would do before we switch over to the sewing machine, and y'all don't pay too much close attention to the size of the eyes. They're not exactly right, but he's kind of quirky, right? I thought, since I used wool for a good portion of these, that I would just do like a little X right over top of them to permanently put them in place, right? This Heat and Bond light is great for keeping everything in place for a little while, but it's not permanent. So I'm going to use a size 24 Chanel needle and some black pearl cotton. And we're going to do this before we make our layers. You can do this after you make your layers if you want. But I'm just going to, real quick, sew down the eyes. Just using my needle threader to get that thread right through there. I'm going to put a knot at the bottom of my thread. And this knot is going to live in the middle of this quilt block. Y'all, I'm pretty sure it was the cat. All right, so I'm just going to come up, and this is one of the reasons why I zoomed in, is so you can see a little bit better, but it's not real technical, y'all. I'm just going to come in right next to that eye, like this, from the back, right? And I'm just going to do like a big cross stitch right over top of that eye. There's the first stitch, and it's going to blend in. And here's the second. And that's all I really have to do, right? I got little fuzzy bits. And you're not going to see that so much because the white washes out the camera. And I'm just going to skip right over to the next eye. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. Now, I think what would look really adorable is if you did a blanket stitch by hand for the scarf and the buttons. I think that would be adorable. There's a couple of different finishing ideas. But there we go. Now I don't have to stitch around the edge of these little small eyes. They're stitched down permanently. Just going to tie myself a little knot on the back. I just do a little quick knot. And then I'm going to cut this thread, put another knot at the bottom of the thread, and I'm going to do the same exact thing for the eyes down at the bottom. Now you could use felt for this as well. Just be careful with the heat if you're using a polyester felt, right? Maybe instead of using a fusible that requires heat to fuse it down in place, maybe a little bit of glue and just let it air dry, and then you can stitch down your eyes. Just avoiding any issues with the heat. I'm going to come right down here and stitch across, or an X, right across these two eyes as well. I do think if I wasn't doing this block during a live, I do think that, like if I was doing this in my own time, I do think that I would take the time and hand stitch the other elements. Just because I've really started enjoying doing that. We're going to skip over and do the same thing for the next eye. So now when we're at the sewing machine, I won't have to worry about stitching those parts down. Those are done. If I were using beads, I would probably wait until everything is stitched down and then add those just in case the presser foot got too close to them. You know, I just want to avoid that. But we can do hand stitching like this at this stage. All right, I'm going to tie a little knot and finish this off. And then we're going to create the layers for this block. There we go. Look, y'all, I even had to put I had to put my pins, no more open pin cushions in my studio. I had to put them in in a little case with a lid because particularly one of my cats was messing with my pin cushion and I didn't like that. So I didn't want her to hurt herself. So there we go. The eyes are stitched down. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and glue baste the layers at this point. And I think, y'all, one of the things we're going to find out this week. Remember last week when I ran into a little bit of buckling issues with the fabric after we joined those two blocks together? I did, and you'll see that here in a minute. I did go back and quilt the background to kind of flatten that out. And let me zoom back out of so you can see more of what I'm doing. I did go back and quilt that, so you'll see that here in a minute. But I was watching the video, and I realized that I did not glue baste my layers very much. I used a little bit of glue, just quick swipes, right? So all of that fabric, except for the quick swipes of glue I did, was just loose. And I think that had a lot to do with my fabric buckling. So on this block, I'm just going to glue baste it like crazy. A spray basting would work really nicely as well. But I don't want to be spraying that with all this camera stuff around. Yeah, Betty said, where is your YouTube award on the screen so we can see it when you are on? It is hanging up over there. It is. It's hanging up over there. That's exciting though, right? So I'm going to glue baste these layers like crazy. And we're going to see if it doesn't do any better. And I mean several swipes. It's not going to hurt anything. All of this glue, we're going to dry it with the iron anyway. So I'm just glue basting like crazy. There we go. Let's flatten that out and lift up the other side. Glue, glue, glue along the sides. Glue along the sides. All right, we'll see if that doesn't do any better. And flatten that out. Let's bring in our quilt top. Chrissy said you can glue, baste with basting powder too. I've seen that. And who was showing me that? We were zooming over on Patreon and somebody had some. Oh, Danielle, she got some. I have not tried it. But after Danielle showed it to me, I thought I would look into it. So, Chrissy, do you like the basting powder? Is it messy? Danielle hadn't used it yet, so we couldn't really find out like how messy it was. Y'all see how much swipes I'm doing this time? I didn't do the top half, so let me just get this on here. Flatten it out, and let me add some glue to this top half. Dun, dun, dun. Lots of glue, lots of glue, lots of glue this time. I'd really like to not have to quilt every single background. Like some backgrounds I do want to quilt, but I don't want to have to quilt every single background if I don't want to. Do you know what I'm saying? This whole quilt as you go method is relatively new for me. If I was putting this quilt on the long arm, I probably would quilt every background. All right, so let's get it nice and flat and let's dry this really well before we bring it over to the sewing machine. Vicki said, I've used the powder and I do not like it. Messy, hard to get good coverage. Brenda said, Quilty Select sells it at Missouri Star. I want to look into it. I mean, I know everybody has different experiences with it, and some people are going to love it. Some people are going to think it's okay, and then some people are not going to like it, right? I think that's true with everything. But I think I do want to just, you know, for some applications it might be good, and for others maybe not, right? Let's flip this over one time just to press from the back. I want to make sure we dry all that glue on the back as well. Gotta let that charge up for a second. Vicki Hibbs said, and if you happen to miss a spot when you melt it, it will get everywhere when you pick it up. That's good to know. That's good to know. Oh, Trinita, one of your kiddos is sick. I'm sorry. Betty said, someone here are not aware of your award. I know. Maybe I should put it up there. Somewhere in the back. I don't know. All right, let's dry this glue on the back. I think I got it too hot that time, y'all. Just want to make sure that glue is nice and dry. I know lots of people are nervous about using glue. To me, the way I think about it is it's just like the Heat and Bond Light, right? Once it's dry, you can absolutely stitch through it. And everything works out great. Don't look too close at the eyes. Now, one thing I did want to do as this cools down, let me just fan it off and let it cool off faster, is you'll notice the details for, there's a nose and the little coal pieces for the mouth, right? I did not cut those out. I'm going to use stitches in my machine and do a decorative stitch there, which is super fast. And then I didn't have to worry about cutting those little circles out, right? But I do want to give myself a little placement so that when I'm at the machine, I can kind of have a little bit of an idea of where to stitch. And it's still a little warm. Sheila said, I love the eyes, lots of character. Yeah, they, looking at them this way, I don't see it, but when I look at them on the screen, I see. That's okay. All right, that's cooled off. So I want to do a little stitch for the nose, right? And I want to put in a mouth. Now, what would be really nice is if you did a little satin stitch, and the white's just going to blow that right out. See that? And this will disappear with some heat. It's just a friction fine liner, right? That'll disappear. You could do a satin stitch. There's tons of different decorative stitches you could use. But yeah, get creative. You could stitch in there some beads by hand. Again, I would wait until the very end to do that. But that's just me. They are kind of in the middle there, so maybe they wouldn't be in the way. But yeah, lots of different ideas for those details. Okay, so we're ready to move to the sewing machine. Which one of these elements, let me just throw a little quiz out there. Which one of these elements would you stitch down first? I'm going to give it a second. There's lots of different elements to stitch down. Sheila said Mr. Snowman has been down in the pub. Yeah. Ah, Hazel said the top snowman would look good with glasses on. That's a great idea. I could always come in afterwards and maybe hand stitch some glasses on it. Melissa said, I'd do the snowman himself, then all the accessories. BJ said the scarf, maybe. I know I'm going to mess up your name. I'm so sorry. Gisela? I'm so sorry. Y'all, I am horrible with names. I would stitch down the larger pieces first. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. I think, I don't know that there's a right answer or a wrong answer. But when I think about stitching applique that's got layers and lots of different pieces, I like to stitch down my foundation first, right? The outside of the biggest piece and anchor that. That's usually where I like to start. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer. I always say it's your project. You can do what you want. I just like to get a good idea of, like, where would y'all start? So I'm going to put some white thread in first. I'm going to do a little blanket stitch. And I'm going to do the blanket stitch just where you see the white pieces showing up, right? And maybe I could have done that before fusing down the scarf so I didn't have to jump. But yeah, we're going to start there. So let me get some white thread in there. And I'm going to be doing a couple of color changes today. And just to let you know, I do have some light gray bottom line thread in my bobbin. And I'm going to use that same gray thread for everything I'm doing today. No matter what color top thread I'm using. Okay. So let me thread this needle and then we're going to skip over to the sewing machine. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. All right, we've got some white thread in there. Let's move on over. So for the sewing machine, for the snowman's body, the white part of the body, I want to use a blanket stitch. I think that would be adorable and it's going to kind of just blend right in there, right? So let me choose a blanket stitch. I like to sort of test it out on a scrap so that I can choose my size, right? And again, because this is white, it's going to kind of all blend in. It's going to look a little washed out for a second, but bear with me for just a second. There's my blanket stitch, and I'll tell you the settings I'm going to use here in just a second, but I just want to get one chosen. All right, I think I like that. This is also a good time to check your tension, right? Make sure none of that bottom thread is coming up to the top. It's very hard to see because it's white on white, but my settings for this blanket stitch are a 2.0 with the width and a 2.0 for the length. And if you're going to do a blanket stitch, you could start there and see what you think on your machine. I'm going to start right at the bottom of this hat. I will be using my thread cutter today because it's faster. I will just have a little bit of a mess on the back that I'll have to tend to. I'm going to do one more stitch there right before we approach the scarf. I'm going to cut that thread because when I do, it makes a little knot. So I don't have to worry about that blanket stitch coming undone, right? I just have to clean up the knot on the back. And we're going to skip right down here and go around the snowman's body. One of the things I like about stitching down the applique at this point with these layers is we are quilting this block as we're stitching down the applique. My thread stand's going to be in the way. There we go. I'm going to have to roll up this part. It's a little bit of a longer block. And my stitches are really close together, so it's going to take some time to go around this. And we're doing everything double today. If I had my free motion foot on, we might be done with this part already. When I'm traveling with this blanket stitch, I'm making sure that when the needle comes over to the right, it is just touching the snowman's body, right? It's stitching in the background, but it is touching the snowman's body. And that way, hopefully, I won't have any white stitches on the blue background. All right, one more stitch right there, and we're going to cut that and jump right up here for this space. Little tiny thread. All right, one more stitch. And we're cutting. All right, so that's the first one. We're going to be doing everything in double time today. I'm going to come right down here. And I'm trying to go quick, but I also want to do a nice and neat job. So there's that. I want to thank my moderators today for keeping an eye on the chat, especially while I can't see. Going right around the bottom of that snowman. You'll notice sometimes I stop and do a hard turn, right, just to get it lined up. Anytime I'm stopping and turning, I'm making sure that that needle is to the right in the background fabric. All right, I'm going to cut the thread and we're going to jump up. We've got one more little space with the white thread. So there we go. The bodies of the snowman are stitched down, and let me just cut these because they're a little distracting, right? We need that thread. All right, so the next thread I'm going to put in is a black thread, and we're going to go ahead and stitch down the hat. The eyes are already stitched down. We did that by hand. I think for the hat, I will use a zigzag stitch. I think that would be cute. Where's the ending of this thread? There we go. I have to stand up for a second, y'all. There we go. There we go. Can y'all hear my bird? My dad just got home with lunch, so the bird is basically begging for whatever he brought home. Okay, so let me get the thread in this needle, and then we're going to choose a zigzag stitch. All right, zigzag stitch for me. And let me just test out the zigzag stitch. I don't want a really big one. So let's see. Let's see what this looks like. All right, so there's my zigzag stitch, y'all. I think that's going to work great. So for my machine, the width is 2.6 and the length is 0.8. All right, and we're going to stitch down the hat. I'm just going to start right up here at the top, right in the middle. Now, for today's applique pieces, you'll notice I'm picking thread colors that kind of blend right into my applique. So unfortunately, I don't know how much of the stitch you're going to actually see, right? But I did want the stitches to blend in. I do think using a contrasting thread would look great as well. Remember, with a zigzag stitch, if we're turning our work to the left, make sure your needle's in the left hand position. If we're turning our work to the right, make sure your needle's in the right position. This is going to keep your stitches nice and uniform. Yeah, see, if we had beads right there, my presser foot would be going right over top of them. Right there is where we started. I'm just going to go over where we started just by a couple of stitches, and that'll lock itself right in there, right? All right, and I'm going to skip right down to the bottom, and we're going to do the same thing again with the second hat. I do want to cut that little thread at the beginning. I don't necessarily know that any of these shapes are really hard to do this week, except for the little tiny face parts, right? If you're using fabric. I think what's time consuming about this particular block is that we're doing double of each one of these parts, right? Alright, so both hats are stitched down. And while I have the black thread in the machine. Let me just show you a couple of ideas that I had of stitches inside my machine that I think would make a great little mouth, right? It's kind of like a snowflake. So check out the stitches in your machine and see what you have as far as decorative stitches. I also have this little round stitch, and it's probably for like an eyelet or a button or something. But I think I want to use this little round one for the nose, and then maybe some snowflakes for the mouth, which is going to take a hot minute. So let me show you on my machine what this little round one looks like so you can check it out for yourself to see if your machine has this. But on my Juki HXL F600, stitch number 20 right here on the left, right there is the stitch I'm going to use for the nose. Okay. So let me get that programmed in here. Da-da-da-da, 20. There we go. All right, and it's ready to start. I'm not quite sure. I think it started at the left side and went around. Again, it's going to be hard to see. Our nose might be wonky too, y'all. We'll see. Let me get that little bobbin thread pulled up there so I can cut that neatly. There we go. All right, I'm going to hold on to those threads. And then I'm going to move them out of the way. Oh, that's a big nose. Alright. That's a big nose. I guess I should have changed the settings on it, but we're going to go with it. Alright, I'm going to come down here and do the same exact thing. And this stitch always takes like one stitch at the beginning and one at the end, probably so you can tie that off in a little knot. I'm just going to cut it. There we go. So there's the little nose. And then on my machine, I have right here over on the right, and it's kind of blurry. Stitch number 1 is a little snowflake. And I thought that would be cute just to do a couple of little snowflakes. So let me get that programmed in. Clear. We're going to go there. 02. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to do each one individually, and I'm going to try to go through pretty quick. I'm going to just start right there. You can set them up so that they will stitch one after another, but I kind of like the separation between them, so I'm just doing them individually. And I will have a bunch of little jump stitches to do. Actually, I'll just jump like that. There we go. My machine will automatically stop once the whole shape is stitched out. One more. Let's do one more right there. All right, so there's the little mouth. It looks messy. It's got lots of jump stitches. We're going to come right down here and do the same thing for this one. And that goes by pretty quick, y'all. And we're jumping. Now we have all these features in our sewing machines and I hardly ever use them, so I've kind of committed to using more features. Well, that was really close to the scarf. I've kind of committed to using more features of my sewing machine. You know what I'm saying? His mouth is really far down there, Lisa. Wow. One more. This one's going to have a wonky mouth to go with the wonky eyes. Okay, so there's the mouth on that one. I think that's one of the reasons why I avoid decorative stitches. I mean, in theory, like this is the one I did yesterday. In theory, that looks so fantastic, right? I don't know what I did differently. Maybe I didn't pick, oh, I didn't pick the right stitch. Oh, Lisa, I did the wrong stitch. I was wondering why it didn't look like a little snowflake. I put the wrong number in. Oh, well. I think decorative stitches, though, can be so, like, tricky because you're never sure exactly what part of the stitch it's starting off on, right? So, there you go. Now, I do think for this block, even though I basted it really well, I want to keep the quilting on it very minimal. But I think I do want to do some long wavy lines about 1 inch apart. And while I have, clear, while I have the black thread in my sewing machine, it's just going to blend into this fabric here. I'm just going to do a few long straight lines, but they're straight line quilting, but we're going to not keep them straight, right? Yes, okay. So straight stitch. For my stitch length, I'm even going to bump it up to a 2.6, a little bit of a longer stitch. And you'll see I'm just going to start right off the edge, and I'm just going to do some real fast wavy lines. Going back and forth, a little squiggle. This light's going to get in the way. Oh no! I just got a little tuck right there. That's all right. We're going to keep on going. the beauty of Alive. Pay attention, Lisa. I do think I could make this a little bit longer, 3.0. That one was better. I'm going to do one right here. Now, if you don't have the thread cutter where it ties a knot on the back, you might want to do some back stitches if you're stopping in the middle of your block anywhere. I'm just jumping. I'm going to have quite the mess on the back. But when I start, I will do a little back stitch right there. All right, we just have a couple more of those to do. We will do one right there. It's kind of like it's like wind blowing around, right? And one more of those, y'all. About right there. All right, so here's my block so far. I probably will, because that does bother me a little bit. I'm not a huge perfectionist, but I'd prefer not to have that little tuck in there. And I'm pretty sure, oh, you know what? Maybe after we square this up and add, you know, I'll take a look. Maybe that little sashing strip might cover it, so we'll take a look. But if it doesn't cover it, if it's not going to cover it, I will probably unpick this line of quilting off camera in the next week, because I don't particularly want that little tuck in there. Now, one more thread change. I'm going to switch over to, and this is actually a bottom line as well by Superior Threads. But it was the only really thread color that I had that matched the scarf color so well. So we're going to use it in the top, even though it's called a bottom line. I have quilted with my long arm with bottom line in the top. And it gives such a nice, soft, flowy quilting to your quilts. So if you've never tried it, you might want to try it. Oh, I feel like I'm missing so much of the chat. Let me stand up one more time. I think this is our last thread change. Or no, it's not. I'll end up putting some gray thread in to sew down the sashing. But we're getting there, y'all. This is a slinky, thin little thread. but I love it. All right, let me get the needle threaded one more time. I'm going to use this same red thread to do a decorative stitch over top of these buttons. There we go. So let's see. I think I wanted to do a zigzag stitch on the scarf as well. So let's go ahead and go right back to that same zigzag stitch. Or maybe a little bit smaller. Let's do a little bit smaller. Smaller. All right, see that little stitch right there? On my machine, it's 0.8 with the length and 2.6 on the width. And I think that'll be perfect for the scarf. You don't necessarily have to do a stitch that covers the edge on the wool. You could just do a straight stitch right inside the wool if you wanted to. See how slowly I went around that little point? That bottom line is just disappearing right in the wool, which is lovely. Coming along the top. Doing lots of turning, getting around those little corners. We started right there. I'm going to pass that just a little bit. And I don't know if you can really see that on camera the way I see it in person, but the scarf is kind of poofy and there's lots of dimension there, and I absolutely love that so much. All right, so we're going to go right over here. We're going to do the same thing with this snowman. So now's the perfect time to go grab a drink or a snack. Oh no, one of my buttons moved. I guess I didn't fuse that down very well. Let's put that right there for a minute. Or I guess I could do 2 buttons since I've lost one. Let me put this little starting thread. I guess I didn't realize doing 2 snowmen how long it would take when I was designing this block. I just thought it was cute, but sometimes it fails to cross my mind, like, you're going to be stitching out 2 snowmen during the live, Lisa. Now, I think, because I know it was my cat. Since one of the buttons was swiped, let me see if I can raise. Oh yeah, I can. A little bit. I can just lift that off. Let me scratch some of the fuzzy bits off. I'm going to go with 2 buttons on my snowman for now. All right. And that way they're both the same. And I'll just bump that one up right there. Now, I do want to do the little snowflake. And because bottom line, the red thread I'm using in the top is so thin, I don't know that it's going to show up the way that in my mind, I want it to, but we're going to see. All right, the snowflake, Lisa. Pick the right stitch. It's 01, not 02. There we go, snowflake. I'm going to move this right over. I'm going to stitch 1 snowflake right in the middle, hopefully in the middle of the buttons. Oh yeah, you can see it just a little bit. See that? And because this is wool, that's all I really have to do. So let's do the same exact thing on this one. So there's the second one. We're going to skip right down here. So what I just noticed is when it starts stitching, it's going to start at the top. So I'll move up just a little tiny bit. There we go. Super cute. And there we go. See that? Oh, the lighting is horrible. There you go. Little tiny snowflakes stitching down those buttons right down the front of the snowman. So let's come back over here. I have bunches of jump stitches to cut, but I'm just going to cut the big ones that for me are a little bit distracting. And I'll come back later and clean up the back. I think that sounds like a good idea. Let's see, there's some jump stitches with his mouth. See, I got a little close to the scarf down there. That's okay. He looks like he's been jolly already, doesn't he? He looks very jolly. There we go. I could really use my tweezers, but those are not over here. So there's the mouth on that one. And I just want to clean this up so that you get a good idea of what it's going to look like finished without all these little thread jumps in the way. There we go. And I want to get rid of the blue lines from the fine line marker that we used. So I'm going to heat up that iron for just a minute. And while it's heating up, I'm going to get straight a little bit. I'm going to give this one little press just to get rid of those blue lines. And then we're going to square this block up. I always feel like I missed so much of the chat during the live. Did I have you on the... Hold on a second, guys. I would say that's my only downfall with this iron. The way I'm sitting, facing this way, sometimes I don't seat it into the carriage correctly. So I think it's warming up and it's not. There we go. I hear it going now. And just like that, our little blue lines are gone. So there's my little wonkety snowman, right? And let me just give a dry press real quick before we trim this up. Just from the quilting. I want to make sure it's nice and flat. All right, trimming this up because of the length could be a little tricky, right? You might want to use your cutting mat. You might want to use a bigger ruler if you have one that is 18.5 inches long. That's a big ruler. I do have this Creative Grids. It's a lot. It's 2.5 inches wide and it is 18.5 inches long. So I'm going to use this one and my cutting mat, okay? To do that, I'm going to have to stand up because I'm going to have to see exactly what I'm doing. And I think, yeah, the easiest way for me would be to square up the length first. So 18 inches from top to bottom. But I also want to make sure it's going nice and straight too, right? So, where's my little cutter? Cutter. There we go. I want to just preliminary get rid of some of this extra so that I can kind of see if I'm lining this up right, okay? I just like to get rid of some of that extra. Then I can kind of tell if I'm going straight or not, right? And to get the first two cuts, I'm really just eyeballing the edge of this fabric right on this line. I want to make sure it's nice and straight as I'm cutting it, right? And the first cut I'm going to do is, let me bump this up just a little bit, is 18.5 on the length. The smaller blocks are really easy to square up, right? Most of us have several different sized rulers we can use, but these longer blocks can be a little tricky. So there's the half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So I'm just taking a little bit right off the top and bottom. And I really like to square it up after it's quilted, right? Because some of that did draw up just a little bit when I quilted it. It was a little bit longer than that. Now on this part you're not going to see because the camera's as far back as I can get it. But we want to, and I'm going to just do, now that we have this straight edge at the bottom, I'll line that up with a straight line on my mat, okay? And it's going to be off camera. And let me just make sure this was 9.5 inches wide. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. And there we go. So a little off the right. I'm going to leave it right there. Don't move it. And I'm going to squeeze right over here and trim off this side. There we go. All right. I can see so much better if I stand up. So there is our finished block, just like that. And now we can bring in the two previous blocks, right? This should be the exact same length as blocks 1 and 2 after those are together, right? And so now you can see I did go back and do just a really loose little meandering in the background to kind of flatten that out a little bit, right? And I think that looks super cute. So now the first thing we're going to do is join these two blocks together. Now the way that I'm doing it in this particular project, the seam's going to show on the front. And then we're going to cover that seam with a sashing strip. So we're going to put back sides together. I think I am going to use a couple pins. We're going to line up everything nice and straight. Nice and straight, Lisa. You see? There we go. I just want to hold these layers together from top to bottom. And I will just double check it too as we're going along. This is just going to help me keep it lined up, moving it over there, right? So for this part, we want to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I want to get rid of this bottom line thread. I'm going to go ahead and put in the gray thread that I use to stitch down my sashing. We'll use that same thread. Don't hit the camera, Lisa. There you go. I have thread everywhere, y'all. Thread is everywhere. One thing though, since getting our cats, I have one cat in particular, Ashley, loves to check each one of my machines. And if I've left it threaded, he loves to bite at it, and so I cannot leave my machines threaded and walk away anymore. And he checks on a daily basis. He'll go from this machine to my embroidery machine back there, to my long arm, looking for thread. All right, and let me switch this foot because I want to use my regular pressing foot for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, clear, 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 clear. There we go. All right, I'm going to scoot you back to the sewing machine. I am going to start with a little leader, and we are sewing this seam, 1/4 inch seam allowance. I did bump up the stitch length to a 2.4. We've got quite a few layers going on here, right? So I did bump that up just a little bit. You might actually find it helpful to use a walking foot for this part. All right. So now those 3 blocks have been joined together. We're going to come back over here. I'll get rid of these pins. I do think that's a lot better with all the glue basting. A lot more glue basting than I did with the gingerbread man. I think that is good. I do want to give this seam a good little press. I'm almost wondering, do we want to press it open? It's going to be in that sashing. If we don't press it open, it might add a little poofiness to that sashing. You know what? We're going to do it. I'm going to press that seam over to one side. Why not? Because of this point, it really wants to go this way anyway. And because of this sashing strip, see how it's naturally going this way? Let's not fight it. Let's do it. I think all it's going to do is make that sashing in the middle a little poofy. I'm not against that. I do want to give it a little quick press though. Just help it lay down a little bit. Right? There we go. And then let's bring in some of this sashing strip. I'm going to cut myself a piece that's just a little bit longer. Where'd my scissors go? Oh, there they are. Just a little bit. We're going to save that for another block. I'm going to bring in my glue stick again. Now you don't have to do this, but I like to just glue baste. So this isn't moving around. You could pin baste it if you want to. And I think the most important part is not only just covering that seam on the front, but kind of making sure that it's straight, right? With this first block, I'm going to try to lose as little of that point as possible. So I'm just, even though I lost quite a bit there, right? I am just going to cover that seam just like that. And hopefully it's nice and straight going all the way down. Just making sure that glue is good and dry before we do any stitching. I don't know that that's exactly straight. Let's scoot it over just a little bit. It's so hard to tell sitting down, right? Sorry, y'all, I have to look at this way because looking at it sideways does not make sense to my brain. All right, that's better. Sorry. And I do want to fix that top just a little bit. Ooh, not that much glue, Lisa. Yeah. All right, that looks pretty straight. There we go. All right, now I can sit down. Hello, everybody who's joined us since we got started. So great to have you hanging out with us today. All right, so this is what she looks like. I have a feeling all my sashing strips are going to be a little tiny bit wonkety. Same with my eyes and my mouth. But you know what? I feel like that gives it a little bit of character too, doesn't it? Now for this part, I'm going to change my foot over. Look, I even had to put my feet into a container with a lid because one of our cats likes to swipe things that are underneath my sewing machine. All right, I'm going to put a zipper foot on and we're going to do a quick straight stitch on both sides of this sashing, and then we're done for today. I like to use my zipper foot because I can get really close to that edge. And let me move my needle over. I'm going to use a 2.4 stitch length. Yeah, 2.4. That sounds good. I'm writing right next to the edge of that sashing. And then we're going to flip it around and come right back down the other side. Now this side is going to be a little tricky because I bumped this sashing right next to that seam allowance, y'all, that we pressed over to the side. So it might be sewing through quite a few layers in a couple of spots. This is actually my first Quilt As You Go project with joining blocks like this and using a sashing strip to cover it up. So I'm kind of learning this process along with you. Alright, so there we go. See how close that stitch is to the edge? Very, very close. And that's what we do with that part. And all I really have left to do, and I'm just going to eyeball this, y'all, is trim straight across the extra little bit of sashing at the top and the bottom. There we go. And there she is. This is as far back as I can get zoomed out, unfortunately. And let me just take a look down here where this tuck is. You actually can't see it in the camera, but I got a little tuck in that quilt thing right there. Actually, if I take my finger and work it out a little bit, it's not horrible. I wanted to see, you know, we're going to be losing 1/4 of an inch on the right side of this block when we join blocks to the right of it. And I wanted to see if after we do that, the sashing strip's not going to cover it. But you know what? I kind of worked my finger in there and flattened it out, so it's not horrible. You know what? I don't think I'm going to mess with it. Can you see that? I don't think I'm going to pick it out. So there we go. There are our snowmen. Wonkiness and all, I really love them. I really do. Now I have a whole bunch of stuff on the back to clean up on this block, and you can't really too much see it because the gray bottom line is so thin that you really don't see it. You just see and feel texture from quilting, right? But there's a lot of little jump stitches that need to be cleaned up on the back. But there we are, blocks 1, 2, and 3. And I'm super excited to see what you do with your snowmen. Hopefully you can just really take your time and have fun. I feel like sometimes I rush through it just to get through the video. But I hope that you relax and you enjoy and have fun. That's why we're doing it, right? So next week, now I might be wrong because I don't have the order in front of me, but I think next week we're doing Christmas trees. Christmas trees. And just to let you know, I might cut the little decorations of the Christmas trees out by wool as well. So we'll just be doing quick little, I'd like to do a dart stitch with wool because that's really fast. Like dot, 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 and move from one to the next. And then we'll be stitching down 3 Christmas trees, but those are easy shapes, right? Yeah, that blue background is really pretty, isn't it? Yes. So I think that's what we're doing next Friday. Yeah. I'll tell you, I got this blue fabric and it's called denim. But, I guess it does look like denim, doesn't it? I guess I'm so used to using recycled blue jean denim that I was hoping that it kind of looked more like that being sewn into the project. I don't hate it. I think it's cute, but I almost wished I would have just recycled some blue jeans because don't you think that would have been cute? All right, everybody. I really look forward to coming back later this evening. We are actually leaving here in about an hour. Let's see. To go camping. Possibly our last camping for this year. We'll see how the weather is. And it's just going to be tonight and tomorrow night. and come home Sunday. But I do have a couple of work things to do before we go. So that's what we're doing this weekend. I hope you have something fun lined up, but I do know that I'll be reading through the chat later on tonight. I don't know, I just feel like I missed so much of the conversation. So let me hold this up so you can get a better view, right? All in one. Isn't that cute? I think it's super cute. So it's not going to be a huge quilt. We have, you know, over here, it's going to come out this way a little bit. Not super huge, but a really great size wall hanging, right? Great size wall hanging. I'm glad I used a busy back. You know, sewing those little sashing strips. If you don't want that sewing line on both sides of your sashing to show up on the back side of your quilt, you might want to sew that down by hand. I've picked a really busy back fabric, so you don't really so much focus on it, but I don't know if I had used a solid if I would have been in love with that. But it's the back. Who's going to see that, right? I don't know that it matters. Oh, well, Pat said the blue that I use gives a better pop than just plain denim. Okay. Okay, good. You're probably right. You're probably right. I do think like a darker denim would have probably blended in with some of the blues I plan on using. So, you're probably right. All right, everybody. Please feel free to share your pictures. I've seen some of y'all just started with block 1 this past week, and some of y'all got both blocks done. I can't wait to see your third block, your little snowmen. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I don't know that I'll see you before next Friday, but we're coming back next Friday with block number 4, okay? And just keep in mind that if you save the playlist, you'll have all the videos grouped together. So if you're going to come back later, you know, they're all grouped together. Thank you. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be when we go camping, we bring our 3 cats and our bird. So that camper is jam-packed. But it'll be nice just to unplug for the weekend. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Donna. I'm going to tell you, I'm far from perfect. I can tell you that. Oh, no need to feel inadequate when you make mistakes. We all do it, right? There's none of us that are perfect. None of us. Oh, I'm so glad the 2-inch grid was really helpful with your quilt. It does save a lot of time with the measurements, right? I mean, you still might do some math, but it's not so math intensive, right? I had to make those grids doing so many t-shirt quilts because for me it was a huge time saver. It saved me so much time. Melanie said, so great to see this. Haven't quilted since my mom passed. Well, I hope that this inspires you to pick it back up. I think we all go through periods where we just are not in the mood to do it, right? Not just quilting, creative stuff, crochet, cross, whatever we like to do, right? I think we all go through periods in time where a break is just really needed. Or we just might not have the energy, the mental focus to deal with it, right? But the good news is I think that eventually passes, and then we can get back to doing something we enjoy, and it brings us joy, right? So sorry to hear about your mom's passing. All right, everybody. I will see y'all next Friday. I was just trying to think real fast if there's anything going on between then. But I don't think so. It's going to be a quiet week for me, which is fantastic because we have a lot of stuff to do. Oh, and before I close out, and I'm switching over here to find the button, some of you asked about the stitch frames, when we were going to have more. We have some in the Etsy shop. Etsy shop. I don't know why my S's are so hard today. So if you've been waiting for one of the stitch frames that Harlan makes to do hand sewing stuff, hand embroidery, cross stitch and stuff, they're in the Etsy shop. Just letting you know, because I think somebody asked week before last. All right, everybody. I love you so much. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.